It's now my honor to welcome Her Excellency Hillary Rodham Clinton, 67th Secretary of State of the United States and former First Lady. In September 2009, Secretary Clinton presided over the UN Security Council's unanimous adoption of Resolution 1888 during the U.S. presidency of the Council. She has also spent much of her career fighting for the rights of women and children. Madam Secretary, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I am deeply honored to be here today to commemorate the adoption of this extremely important Security Council resolution. I want to thank Special Representative Patton for her tireless commitment to the mandate that she carries here at the United Nations, and to your team that supports you as you fulfill the work that is necessary to deal with conflict-related sexual violence. I also want to acknowledge and thank the governments of Norway, Sierra Leone, Switzerland, and the United States. As has been said, 15 years ago, I was honored to introduce this landmark resolution and preside over a unanimous vote to adopt it. On that day, the global community came together to recognize finally the importance of protecting women and children from targeted sexual violence in conflict zones. Now, we knew this mandate would be just one step on a long journey. And in the years since, there has been progress, but not enough. Rape and other forms of sexual violence are still too often viewed as collateral damage of war and internal conflict. In too many countries and in too many cases, the perpetrators of this violence still go unpunished, and their impunity encourages further attacks. Whether it is government military and police forces, insurgencies, militias, terrorists, all of this must be condemned in the strongest possible terms, and we must continue to work to prevent it. We have seen it across the globe. You know the countries that have already been mentioned, from Colombia and Haiti to Israel, Iraq, others in the Middle East, from Kosovo to Myanmar to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Sudan, so many countries. And so we gather here today to do what we can once again to raise awareness and to speak out against the brutal sexual violence against women and girls, men and boys, young and old. You know, the dehumanizing nature of sexual violence doesn't just harm a single victim, not even that victim's family, nor her village and community. It harms all of us. It sends a message that we are never safe, that we are always in danger. It erodes political and economic stability. It undermines development. And we need to understand that it holds all of us back, and our continuing failure to address it effectively erodes our collective will, our shared humanity. It cuts to the core of the UN's mission. So now we once again must recommit ourselves, not only to protect vulnerable people and promote human security, but to uphold the legitimacy of this body. Now, ending conflicts is, of course, the most certain path to ending sexual violence in conflict, so pursuing peace must be our highest priority. And as we do so, there are also steps we must take to support survivors. That starts, as it does here today, with listening to survivors who know best what they need to recover with justice and dignity. They are asking for resources like training for law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, service providers, psychologists, and other stakeholders in trauma-informed approaches to dealing with conflict-related sexual violence. For example, the SEMA network in Ukraine, an organization dedicated to serving survivors of wartime sexual violence, is doing vital work to raise awareness across villages, to reach out to survivors, to create safe spaces for them to share their stories. The international community should learn from this work, support it, and scale it so it reaches more people. Second, it's time to support reparations for survivors. In Kosovo, survivors of wartime sexual violence are receiving monthly compensation, and even in some cases, pensions. But sustained funding is needed to meet survivors' needs. Third, legal recognition of survivors as civilian victims of war is essential, including for children born of wartime rape. As we learned from the wars in the Balkans, granting legal status to survivors so they can claim financial, health, and psychological support without deadlines is critical to their recovery, and it has a generational impact. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly of all, accountability is crucial, and it begins with those at the top. Those who order attacks on civilian populations and those who carry out the attacks using systematic rape. They are guilty of crimes against humanity and must face consequences. That's why today I am calling for Russia to be added to the UN Secretary General's list of shame. I am under no illusion that shame alone will stop the Kremlin's bloody war, a war that it has not only carried out by emptying its prisons, dragooning its own civilians off of streets to be pressed into war, but is now about to use soldiers from North Korea to continue this bloody, unjustified, unprecedented invasion. No country is safe from this kind of war-mongering leadership, and it is time that the United States recognizes the harm that Russia is causing not only to the people of Ukraine, but to world peace and stability. Now, I know Putin has no shame, but we owe it to the people of Ukraine and to survivors of sexual violence everywhere to call out these terrible crimes. Russia should also be included in the annual report by the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, which details patterns of wartime violence and identifies perpetrator countries. And international organizations should support Ukraine in preparing its own report that will provide critical evidence to reinforce the need for accountability and justice for victims in Ukraine. Now, 15 years ago, on the day we adopted this resolution, I told the story of women survivors whom I had met in eastern Congo, who, after recovering from their horrific injuries, went back into the forests to rescue other women who had been attacked and left to die. They shared a saying that I still think of often. No matter how long the night, the day is sure to come. Well, the day is now, the day for a very bright light on what is happening to women and children around our world. We cannot drag our feet or look the other way when there is suffering at this scale. It is my hope that we leave here today reinvigorated and committed to prioritizing safety and accountability no matter who the perpetrator is. And that after this long night of darkness and violence, we will all be moving one step closer to daylight. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton. Thank you so much for your powerful words and your long commitment to this mandate.